Well, I became a Christian 7 years ago, and it was a rather dramatic conversion, really. I was probably the only person that I knew that got baptised with an electronic tag on his ankle. I went into this service and my friend invited me along. I had a lot of baggage, I'd been an alcoholic, a drug addict and all these different things. And this guy came out and started preaching and talking about Jesus and how he could liberate you and how he could, kind of take your chains off you and give you a new life and wash your sins away and all these wonderful things. In between me looking around for people's purses and handbags and things like that, I was actually taking some of it in. And it was some weeks later that I went along to a service again. And I thought, if God's like Ron Seal, does what it says on the tin, then I'll give it a crack. What have I got to lose, I was literally going through a nervous breakdown at the time, I believe. And within a few weeks of saying this prayer and accepting Jesus into my heart, my life changed in a dramatic way. I had literally got into this flat in Loughborough, Leicestershire, probably a couple of months before. And I was on licence, I had an electronic tag on my ankle and I'd been given a curfew that I had to be in from 7 at night till 7 in the morning, which I, of course, went out and broke every night, getting drunk and doing drugs and whatever. So at that particular point, I was in a very rough area in Loughborough where a lot of the drug dealers are, where a lot of the trouble causers are, and it was no different for me as well. I was involved in all of that. I was in some really dark places. Having left the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, I got kicked out. This was RADA, acting school, because of alcohol problems and gambling problems, drug problems, and just bad attitude, basically. I ended up on the streets selling the Big Issue in the West End, when 1 minute you've been singing in front of Princess Di and had tea with Lord Attenborough, and the next minute you're selling the Big Issue, it's a bit of a come down. This guy called Johnny Kinch, who eventually told me about Jesus, some years before had become a Christian, and this was a guy I didn't really want for anything financially, a very wealthy family, but he had been praying one day and he'd felt God say to him, go and find Johnny Kinch. He invited me to this little Baptist church, and they had these two old people on the door, literally with a combined age of about 386. They seemed that old. And I thought, what am I doing here? And as they opened the doors, the only way I can describe it is it's like when you get off a plane abroad and you're hit with the heat, a change of atmosphere. Well, that's what it was like for me. When they opened these doors, it was a change of atmosphere. And I kind of wanted to embrace it, but also wanted to run from it. I was afraid of it. And we went in, and like I say, the pastor came out and told me all about Jesus. And it was like, and I've heard many people say this, it was like he was talking directly to me. And I thought, well, maybe, just maybe, that what he's saying is true. If it's true, then it changes everything. If it's not true, then what harm is it going to do me having a go at it? So I decided this particular day to go back in a little room at the back of the church building, and I said a prayer with this guy who became a great friend of mine. And the prayer was just saying, look, I'm sorry for what I've done, God. I believe you're real. I believe that Jesus is real and that you sent him to die in my place, that he died on the cross and he was resurrected from the dead 3 days later, and he's alive today. I started to think differently, and it was amazing. People say to me, you're brainwashed, and I'd say, absolutely, my brain has been washed. It used to be full of rubbish, and now it's being washed and cleansed, and I'm starting to think clearly. So, knowing Jesus and having in my heart, and feeling like before I met him, it was like a heater that had got a pilot light on, but now the dial had been turned up and all the rooms were full of warmth. He changed me in such a dramatic way, and it went on year after year. It was not long after being a Christian that I went off to college to study as a minister, where I met my wife. We've been married 5 years and we've got a 1-year-old daughter. And when I came out of that school, I went to work at a hostel in Loughborough called the Carpenter's Arms, where I wrote a book about my life, and the BBC got hold of it, and I went and did some interviews on radio, and they offered me my own radio show. So I worked for 3.5 years as a radio presenter. And I was thinking about how I could utilise my previous skills, acting, singing, entertainment, that kind of thing, in reaching people in my own community. So I came up with the concept of Sunday Night Live, which I approached Costa Coffee in Loughborough, just said, look, I want to put on this night of live entertainment with a twist of faith, and that's when the tagline came. I had no idea really how it was going to be, and we opened the doors, I had got some artists booked, and I was going to give a testimony myself how God had changed my life. And within 5 minutes, 4 people turned up. That was it. And I couldn't believe it. I was devastated, and I went to the back of the room and said a very quick prayer. I said, God, please don't make me look like an idiot here. And God said to me, what is success? And I thought, bums on seats, money in the till. And God said, no, it's obedience. And within 20 minutes of that prayer, we had 160 people turn up. They were queuing down the road. We ran out of cups and chairs and everything. It was incredible. Now we're at just under 50 venues nationally, and we've had, over 100,000 people go to these events. And again, it's just doing it in a neutral venue. It's becoming the shop window for the church. It's changing the mindsets of the people, the British public, of what they think church, Christianity and faith and Jesus is all about. There's been this stereotypical mindset for many, many years. Christians have been marginalised, but now we're starting to recoup that by inviting them into this neutral venue and showing them, hey, the church is not what you think it is.